A young girl approached a millionaire CEO during his dinner and handed him a note that left him utterly astonished. Before we embark on this narrative journey, please share a comment below and let us know your location as you tune in. Delight in the narrative. The sophisticated Pinnacle restaurant hummed with a subtle vibrancy of influence and affluence. Golden light from chandeliers danced over pristine white tablecloths, while waiters moved gracefully between the tables, balancing silver trays laden with fine wines. In the corner booth, slightly shielded for intimacy, sat James Sullivan, the 38-year-old head of Sullivan Enterprises. In his tailored navy suit, with a confident posture and piercing blue eyes, James effortlessly drew attention. The trio of investors seated before him were captivated by his every word, as he detailed the concluding aspects of a $200 million agreement that would solidify his company's supremacy in the tech industry. Gentlemen, once you sign these papers, we will be making history together, James said, his deep voice resonating with a commanding presence. Meredith, his assistant, gave an approving nod from the edge of the table while she organized the contracts. As James extended his hand toward his fountain pen, a slight stir caught his attention at the entrance of the restaurant. Three little girls, indistinguishable from one another, had somehow managed to evade the maitre d'. They appeared to be no older than 6, dressed in identical blue dresses, their blonde hair neatly tied back in uncomplicated ponytails. Their eyes, filled with a mix of curiosity and hesitation, roamed the restaurant until they finally spotted him. The tiniest one, or maybe the most bashful, separated from her siblings and made her way to his table. The restaurant fell silent as the child, gripping a folded napkin, paused next to his chair. "May I ask if you are Mr. Sullivan?" she inquired, her tone scarcely rising above a murmur. James cast a quick look at his bewildered colleagues before directing his attention to the young girl. "Indeed, I am. How may I assist you, darling?" The child extended the napkin toward him before swiftly retreating to her sisters. James opened it, anticipating a child's artwork or maybe a request for an autograph. He had made an appearance in Forbes just last month, after all. Instead, in meticulous handwriting that unmistakably belonged to a young one striving earnestly, were words that came to a halt. His heart. "Our beloved grandmother Margaret is nearing the end of her journey. She claims you are our father. We find ourselves at Pine Hills Shelter." James sensed the color fade from his cheeks. Margaret. It had been almost 7 years since he last heard that name, yet the memory of her daughter Catherine lingered in his mind. His beloved from college. The woman he had loved with fervor before his career led him down a different path. Guidance. They had gone their separate paths when he prioritized his career over their bond. "Excuse me, Mr. Sullivan?" One of the investors leaned in, a look of concern on their face. "Is everything okay?" James gazed at the trio of identical little girls who now clustered together near the entrance. At the age of 6, the same subtly elevated nose as Catherine. As one of them shifted just a bit, he glimpsed something that caused a tightness in his chest. A delicate crescent-shaped birthmark graced her wrist, exactly like his own. "I need to go," James declared, rising suddenly and collecting his belongings. "Meredith, please rearrange all the appointments. We've been diligently pursuing this deal for several months now, sir. The documents are prepared for signing at this moment," Meredith insisted, maintaining her composed professionalism. "Breaking a bit. These investors arrived from Tokyo just for this dinner," she remarked in a low, pressing tone. James hardly registered her words. His attention was fixed on the 3 little girls, his daughters, as the restaurant manager made his way toward them. "I sincerely apologize, gentlemen. A family emergency has arisen," he remarked, adjusting his tie with a practiced motion. "Meredith shall. Please ensure all matters are addressed and schedule another meeting at your earliest convenience." Without pausing for a reply, James strode across the restaurant floor with purpose, each step filled with resolve. As he drew near the children, they gazed up at him with matching blue eyes. His eyes, brimming with a blend of anticipation and unease. "Mr. Sullivan, the manager, commenced. I regret the disruption. These children shouldn't be in here without—" "It's all right," James cut in. They are accompanying me. He crouched to meet the girl's gaze, his thoughts swirling with inquiries. I'm James Sullivan. May I ask who you are? The figure at the center, positioned slightly forward of her siblings with a vigilant posture, responded. My name is Emma. She gestured towards each of them in succession, saying, These are my sisters, Olivia and Sophia. Our grandmother Margaret insisted we must locate you before time runs out. James's heart raced in his chest as he gazed at the three identical faces, faces that eerily mirrored his own. In a moment of profound realization, he understood that his life had irrevocably transformed. What is your grandmother's current whereabouts? He inquired softly. In the hospital, the individual known as Olivia responded. Our current location is Pine Hills Shelter. Victoria is our mother's sister. She took us there when Grandma fell ill. James rose, resolution firm. The multimillion-dollar deal would have to be put on hold. Uncovering the truth was of utmost significance. Join me, he murmured gently, extending his hand. Shall we pay a visit to your grandmother? The polished black Tesla moved effortlessly through the evening congestion as James steered toward Pine Hills Shelter, his thoughts racing even quicker than the vehicle. The three identical faces of Emma, Olivia, and Sophia sat quietly in the back seat, their small hands clutching worn backpacks. Are we almost there? Emma inquired of the self-designated representative of the group. Just a few more minutes, James said, meeting their gaze in the rearview mirror. How long have you been at the shelter? 3 weeks and 4 days, Olivia replied with exactness, as Grandma Margaret needed to be taken to the hospital. The shelter sat quietly between a laundromat and a discount grocery store, a modest 2-story structure adorned with peeling blue paint. As they approached the entrance, James sensed the heavy gaze of inquisitive onlookers from both staff and residents. A tall figure wielding a clipboard made her way towards them without delay. Mr. Sullivan, I am Director Patel. We have obtained your gall. Her gaze flickered back and forth between him and the girls. This is quite extraordinary, I must admit. In her small office, Director Patel detailed the circumstances as the girls waited just outside. Catherine Williams tragically lost her life 3 months ago in a car accident. Since that time, Margaret has devoted herself to caring for the triplets, yet her cancer has advanced swiftly. When illness overcame her, Victoria, Catherine's sister, chose to bring the girls here instead of taking them herself. Why has no one reached out to me until this moment? James inquired, his tone taut. Our records indicate that you were not identified as the father. The birth certificates indicate that the father is listed as unknown. With a smooth motion, she pushed the documents over the surface of her desk. Yet the similarity is remarkable. James gazed intently at the certificates. Emma Rose Williams, Olivia Grace Williams, Sophia Faith Williams. All came into the world on October 12th, 6 years prior, roughly 9 months after he had last laid eyes on Catherine. He expressed his desire to see Margaret with conviction. As they strolled through the pristine corridor of St. Luke's Hospital, the sharp scent of antiseptic enveloped him. At the end of the hall lay Margaret's room, a secluded space that James suspected was beyond her financial reach. The woman resting in the bed hardly resembled the lively Margaret he recalled from their college days, when she had warmly welcomed him into her family home for festive dinners. Her formerly vibrant auburn hair had diminished, her skin now resembling delicate parchment, pale and fragile. James Sullivan, she murmured, a faint smile beginning to appear. You arrived? Why didn't Catherine share that with me? He inquired, with emotions poised to engulf him. She made an effort, Margaret responded. Upon discovering her pregnancy, you had just landed your first significant investor. For weeks, she reached out to your office, but your assistant informed her that you were not available. James sensed the ground tremble beneath him. He recalled that time. Endless hours at the desk, nights spent in the office, a phone that never rests, always on silent mode. When she finally understood that she was expecting triplets, her pride held her back from attempting it once more. Margaret pressed on. She believed you had moved on. The door creaked open, revealing a younger woman, slender in form, possessing Catherine's high cheekbones yet with a gaze that held a certain sharpness. Victoria, Margaret recognized. Victoria's stare pierced through James with a chilling intensity. It seems the esteemed CEO has finally chosen to recognize his obligations. Her voice oozed with contempt. James, this is 7 years overdue. Just as he was about to reply, delicate fingers intertwined with his own. Sophia, the most reserved of the trio, stood next to him, her blue eyes mirroring his, gazing up with a pure trust that both broke and mended his heart simultaneously. In that hospital room, surrounded by his daughters and facing their resentful aunt, James Sullivan took the first unplanned step of his carefully orchestrated existence. He announced that he would be bringing them home with him. This evening, Victoria's expression turned steely as she approached James, her voice lowering to a menacing whisper. You can't simply stroll in here after 7 years and claim them. There exist established protocols. Investigating history, Director Patel, who had accompanied them to the hospital, cleared her throat with a hint of discomfort. Mr. Sullivan, I appreciate your passion, but Victoria has a valid point. Securing temporary custody necessitates appropriate paperwork and judicial consent. James let go of Sophia's small hand and stood tall, the formidable business leader revealing himself beneath the astonished father. Call my lawyer, he instructed Meredith, who lingered in the doorway. Please inform him that I require the emergency temporary guardianship documents to be prepared without delay. You're out of your mind, Victoria spat. Do you really believe you can purchase a place in their world? These girls are completely unaware of your existence. Margaret interjected softly from her bed. They don't know you very well either. You've made 3 visits over the span of 6 years, Victoria. Stop acting like this concerns their welfare. The triplets clustered by the hospital window, their matching expressions grave as they observed the adults dispute their fate. Emma's arm encircled Sophia's shoulders in a gesture of protection, as Olivia anxiously fidgeted with the hem of her dress. Victoria was adamant that they should be with family. I am family, James replied, his voice firm and resolute, leaving no room for debate. I am their father. After 2 hours, James's determination and ample resources achieved what typically required weeks of effort. His attorney showed up with urgent custody documents endorsed by a judge who had a debt of gratitude to James. From her hospital bed, Margaret, acting as their legal guardian, signed her temporary consent. I believe Catherine would approve, she murmured to James, her hand quivering as she placed the pen down. Her love for you remained unwavering, no matter what happened. Victoria burst out, leaving a lingering threat in her wake. This is far from finished, Sullivan. Far from it. As James guided the girls toward the hospital exit, his phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from board members and investors seeking clarity on his sudden exit. He muted it with barely a thought. What is our next destination? Emma inquired, her soft voice wavering but filled with courage. Home, James responded, astonished by how perfectly the word resonated with him. My dwelling, which I imagine has become your dwelling as well. Are there toys available there? Olivia asked with a practical approach. No, James confessed, but we can acquire some tomorrow. Mommy's picture, Sophia suddenly said, pulling at his sleeve. We require the photo of Mom from the shelter. James lowered himself to her height, captivated by the silent depth in her gaze, reminiscent of Catherine's. I assure you we will achieve it. All that truly matters to you. As they strolled through the dimly lit parking garage toward his vehicle, the weight of his hasty choice started to dawn on him. 3 young lives now relied on him. A man who meticulously planned his bathroom breaks and arranged for his meals to be delivered, all in the pursuit of peak productivity. Mr. Sullivan, Meredith said with a hint of hesitation, holding her tablet tightly. The investors in Tokyo are considering withdrawing their support, prompting the board to call for an urgent meeting first thing tomorrow morning. James gazed at the trio of identical faces that were fixed on him with anticipation, then shifted his attention back to his assistant. Postpone the meeting and inform Tokyo that if they desire this deal, they will need to be patient. For the first time in his adult life, James Sullivan discovered something that held greater significance than Sullivan Enterprises. James's penthouse apartment spanned the entire 52nd floor of the Sullivan Tower, featuring floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased a breathtaking panorama of the city lights below. When the elevator doors swung open to reveal his foyer, the triplets let out a collective gasp. "You live in the sky!" Olivia exclaimed, her small hands eagerly pressing against the glass. "Don't touch," Emma cautioned instinctively, then cast a hesitant look at James. "Is it permissible for us to touch the windows?" The inquiry took him by surprise. "This is your home now as well, without a doubt." James examined his apartment from their perspective. Furniture with a minimalist design in gray and black tones. Advanced technology seamlessly integrated into bespoke cabinetry. Abstract art that surpasses the value of most homes, devoid of any child-friendly or inviting elements. "Where shall we rest our heads?" Sophia inquired softly, holding a tattered backpack close to her heart, the sole belongings they had been permitted to take from the shelter before his attorney ushered them away. "I have guest rooms," James replied, guiding them down a hallway. 3 of them, actually. Every uniform room featured a queen-sized bed, a nightstand, and nothing more. The girls stood side by side in the doorway of the first room, exchanging glances in that unspoken way that only a group can understand. "Shall we spend the night together?" Emma inquired, her courageous mask faltering just a bit. "We always share a bed," James nodded, suddenly feeling utterly insufficient. "Absolutely. Allow me to search for a few more fitted sleepwear for your comfort." Following a clumsy rummage through his drawers, the finest he could present were 3 matching white t-shirts that draped to their ankles like nightgowns. As he settled them into one large bed, the oddity of the situation hit him with full force. Yesterday he was a bachelor, a CEO with a couple of small beings who were genetically half of him, yet entirely unknown. "Excuse me, Mr. Sullivan?" As he reached for the light switch, Olivia's voice rang out. "Are there any toothpaste options for children available? The mint variety sears our tongues." He assured us that we would have some tomorrow. "And night lights," Sophia murmured, "to ward off the monsters." James cleared his throat with a deliberate pause. "I assure you, there are no monsters lurking around. That's what adults always say," Emma stated with a sense of certainty. "Yet, they remain oblivious to the visions we behold in the shadows." Having crafted 3 makeshift lights using his phone, a tablet, and a bathroom desk lamp left aglow, James made his way back to his bedroom. He collapsed onto the edge of his bed, loosening his tie as the weight of reality enveloped him. He held the role of a father to the trio, the daughters of Catherine, his girls. The sound of his phone pierced the silence. "The investors from Tokyo are back once more." Just as he muted the first call, another one chimed in. "Victoria, this isn't over," she declared, cutting straight to the chase. "You left my sister when she was expecting. You can't suddenly act like a savior just because it suits you." "I had no idea she was expecting," James said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Catherine kept it to herself." "She made an effort," Victoria retorted sharply. Yet, the illustrious James Sullivan was far too occupied with constructing his empire to respond to her calls. Once Victoria ended the call, James remained in the shadows, tormented by the possibilities of what could have unfolded had he prioritized connection over ambition with the woman he once cherished. A gentle whimper from the guest room drew him out of his reverie. He discovered Sophia propped up in bed, tears cascading down her cheeks as her sister lay asleep nearby. "Nightmare?" he inquired with an air of discomfort. She nodded, a soft hiccup escaping her lips. "I encountered Mother once more." She was attempting to convey a message, yet her words eluded my ears. James paused for a moment, then gently lowered himself onto the edge of the bed. "Your mother was truly remarkable. Did you truly care for her?" Sophia inquired straightforwardly, with the candidness characteristic of children. The inquiry broke through his meticulously crafted defenses. "Indeed," he confessed. "Absolutely." Bathed in the gentle illumination of the improvised nightlights, James Sullivan confronted the initial of numerous unsettling realities that this new existence would unveil. The initial beam of morning light poured through the expansive windows, creating elongated shadows that danced across James's bedroom floor. He perched on the edge of his bed, fixated on his phone. 27 missed calls, 42 unread emails, and a calendar brimming with appointments that now felt insignificant next to the 3 little girls peacefully slumbering down the hall. A gentle noise from the kitchen caught his attention. Drawn by the commotion, he discovered Emma balanced delicately on his marble counter, her tiny arms reaching out toward a cabinet. "What are you up to?" James hurried ahead, eager to reach her before she tumbled. "In search of a morning meal?" Emma replied with a straightforward tone as he placed her on the ground. "We consistently prepare our own breakfast." Grandma Margaret struggled to find her footing in the mornings. The straightforward declaration struck James with the force of a tangible impact. The daughters had been looking after themselves and seemingly their grandmother as well. 2. "What do you typically enjoy for a meal?" he inquired, pulling open the refrigerator door to expose a stark array of only protein shakes, champagne, and takeout boxes. "Breakfast with milk and cereal?" Olivia replied, making her way into the kitchen in her baggy t-shirt, wiping the sleep from her eyes, or opting for toast with peanut butter if the milk was gone. A swift examination of his bachelor kitchen uncovered nothing even slightly appropriate for kids. With a determined nod, James picked up his phone to place an order. Request, similar to what you might experience at a dining establishment. Emma's eyebrows arched in astonishment. "Indeed, I often have my meals brought to me in the mornings." The girls shared looks that appeared to hold a whole dialogue within them. "Is that due to a lack of culinary skills?" Olivia inquired with an unpretentious candor. Before James could respond, his phone chimed, the distinctive tone he had carefully chosen for board members. He sensed the urgent tug of duty, the natural urge to respond without delay. Yet, the trio of eager gazes fixed upon him made him falter. "I should take this," he said, stepping away from the kitchen. "It holds significance." "More significant than breakfast," Emma asserted, folding her arms in a manner so evocative of Catherine that James nearly gasped. With a firm gesture, he ended the call. "Absolutely, breakfast takes precedence above all else at this moment." As they savored the delivered pancakes and fresh fruit from the city's finest breakfast establishment, James's phone buzzed with a text from Meredith. "An emergency board meeting has been convened. Please be present in 30 minutes. Investors in Tokyo are considering pulling out." The former version of James would have already dashed out the door. The new James, whatever that entailed, gazed at the syrup-smeared faces before him and responded, participating from a distance. Arrange a video conference. An hour later, James discovered himself entangled in a predicament that seemed insurmountable. Attempting to salvage a multimillion-dollar deal through a video conference, all the while 3 6-year-olds roamed his apartment, their noise escalating with each passing moment. The investors in Tokyo exchanged disapproving glances as Sophia entered the scene, her voice ringing out as she inquired if she could watch cartoons. "Mr. Sullivan," the lead investor remarked with a chill in his voice, "perhaps it would be better to reschedule for a time when you are less preoccupied." "Not necessary," James responded with conviction. "My daughters are going to be part of our household for good, so we should start adapting now. The conditions of our agreement continue to benefit both sides." The term daughters lingered oddly on his tongue, both frightening and yet, in some way, fitting. Once the call concluded, the deal hanging by a thread, James discovered the girls in his home office, scrutinizing the sole personal photograph he had retained. An old photograph of him and Catherine from their university years, sharing laughter by a fountain. "That's Mommy?" Sophia whispered, her fingers gently brushing the glass frame. "She appears to be in high spirits." James confirmed that she was indeed sitting down beside them. "Your mother radiated joy like no one else I have ever encountered. She had a remarkable ability to discover happiness in everything, from gloomy weather to disappointing test results." "Did she love you?" Olivia asked, her directness unwavering. James paused, a sudden caution creeping in as he considered the possibility of interrupting Catherine's story. Had she shared anything with the girls regarding him? What words had she chosen? "We cherished one another deeply," he replied thoughtfully. "Yet there are moments when grown-ups make decisions that lead them down separate paths. Emma stated plainly that you picked your career over her. Aunt Victoria believes that's the case." The allegation pierced deeply with its undeniable reality. "I've made decisions that haunt me," James accepted. "If I had been aware of the three of you, I would have chosen differently." That evening, following a day filled with clumsy efforts at nurturing and managing calls from his perplexed team, James was stirred from his sleep by gut-wrenching cries. Sophia was huddled in the hallway, her body curled into a tight ball as she gasped through her tears. "I want Mommy," she cried as he knelt beside her. The dream returned, and once more, she seemed to be conveying a message to me. Feeling uncertain, James hesitantly extended his arms, and to his astonishment, the little girl leaped into his embrace. Her petite frame trembled with sorrow as he embraced her, initially with uncertainty, then with a firm reassurance. He whispered, "I miss her too." Startled by the reality of his statements, he had refrained from contemplating Catherine for years, suppressing those emotions beneath his drive and aspirations. "Do you really?" Sophia gasped softly, her gaze lifting to meet his, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Each and every day," James confessed. "Even when I feigned indifference." He brought her back to the bedroom where her sisters lay asleep. Rather than placing her down, he settled on the edge of the bed, still cradling her in his arms. He reached into his pocket, retrieving his wallet, and took out a faded photograph. Catherine at her graduation, her smile shining brightly. He admitted quietly that he had held onto this for 7 years. "Your mother was remarkable." Emma and Olivia were now awake, observing this interaction with serious expressions. "Are you truly interested in having us?" Emma inquired abruptly, her tone delicate even with her courageous demeanor. "Or are we merely another challenge for you to address?" The inquiry laid bare all facade. In that instant, James Sullivan, a skilled negotiator, brilliant strategist, and corporate powerhouse, found himself devoid of a calculated reply, confronted only by unvarnished reality. He confessed that he lacks the knowledge of fatherhood, yet he is eager to acquire it. "As the four of us sat in the dim light, I realized that you three are the most significant people in my life now, even though I had only just uncovered this world." A tentative bridge began to form across the chasm of years and secrets. Fragile, uncertain, yet undeniably real. The sterile hospital corridor stretched out before James, an unending passage as he made his way to Margaret's room. 2 days had gone by since he had welcomed the triplets into his home. Days marked by a whirlwind of shopping for all things child-related and spontaneous tutorials on parenting gleaned from YouTube, sneaked in during moments when the girls were otherwise engaged. He lingered momentarily before Margaret's door, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The girls remained at home with Meredith, who unexpectedly disclosed that she had previously been a kindergarten teacher before transitioning to the corporate world. "James." Margaret's voice had lost its strength, her skin appearing even more translucent against the stark white backdrop. "Pages. I had my doubts about your return." "I had to," he replied, settling into the chair next to her bed. "There is an abundance of knowledge that remains beyond my grasp." Margaret's smile held a softness, yet it carried an undercurrent of sorrow. "What would you like to explore first? Why didn't she share it with me?" That question had lingered in his mind ever since he unfolded that napkin at the restaurant. Margaret's delicate fingers danced over her blanket. "She made an effort, James, for weeks after discovering the truth, but you were busy launching Sullivan Enterprises. Your assistant repeatedly mentioned that you were not available." James shut his eyes, lost in the memories of that moment. He had directed Meredith, not his current assistant but the one before her, to filter all personal calls. Catherine's path would have been obstructed without him ever realizing it. Upon discovering it was triplets, Margaret pressed on, feeling a mix of fear and unwavering resolve. "Catherine mentioned that you've already made your decision, prioritizing your career over her." Her pride held her back from pleading after facing rejection time and again. James insisted that he had never turned her away. We decided to pursue our own journeys. Is that what you convinced yourself of? Margaret's voice took on a brief edge. She cared for you deeply, allowing you the freedom to pursue your aspirations. And you cherished your aspirations deeply enough to set her free. The reality hit him with the force of a punch. She created a wonderful life for the girls, Margaret said with a softer tone. Leveraged her art degree to market and sell her paintings. We offered assistance whenever possible. She never accepted a cent of government aid. Excessively proud for that as well. What prompts this moment? James inquired. Why reveal this to me after all this time? As she had intended, Margaret disclosed, her eyes brimming with tears. Prior to the accident, Catherine had come to the conclusion that the moment had arrived. The daughters were inquiring about their father. She mentioned that it was important for you to connect with your daughters, and for them to connect with you. The door swung open behind him and Victoria entered, halting suddenly at the sight of James, still present, embodying the role of the worried father. Her voice oozed with contempt. How long until this latest edition loses its charm for you? Victoria, Margaret cautioned softly. Absolutely not, Mother. This is something he must hear. Victoria moved in closer. Catherine, I've observed your ascent to prominence from a distance, James. Spotted your image in business publications as she juggled 2 jobs to stay afloat. She had the option to pursue child support, to take legal action and potentially secure a substantial amount. However, she desired for the girls to be cherished for who they are, rather than for their association with your wealth. James stood, a surge of frustration bubbling within him. If I had been aware, I would have certainly attended. Could you? Victoria faced a challenge. The remarkable James Sullivan, swapping board meetings for diaper duty and preschool performances? I have my reservations. Just as he was about to reply, his phone vibrated with a notification. A fresh dilemma has emerged at the workplace. For the first time in his career, James Sullivan allowed the phone to ring without answering. I'm not going anywhere, Victoria, he declared with conviction. Those girls are my daughters, and I am determined to be the father they truly deserve, even if I am 7 years behind. As he exited the hospital, James understood that the echoes of his past decisions would persistently linger in his current life. Yet with every stride, his determination grew stronger. The triplets represented more than a duty. They were his opportunity for salvation. The next morning, the headlines burst forth on James's tablet screen. Wealthy magnates, hidden triplets, Sullivan Enterprises, CEO asserts the existence of estranged daughters. Below lay a blurred image of him guiding the girls into his building, their youthful faces only partially discernible despite his efforts to protect their identities. What led them to discover it so swiftly? James grumbled under his breath, his eyes scanning the article that chronicled his tumultuous departure from the Pinnacle restaurant and the ensuing custody battle. Perhaps I played a role in that. Victoria's voice echoed from his doorway, where she lingered, a newspaper clutched in her hand. Try not to look so astonished, James. The doorman allowed me access when I stated that I was the girl's aunt. You shared this with the media? James's voice was calm and deliberate, mindful of the young ones who could be eavesdropping. Victoria's smile held a chill. I recently shared an exclusive interview detailing how the formidable James Sullivan left my pregnant sister behind, only to return years later to assert his claim over his children, once the arduous task of raising them was complete. James placed his tablet down with great care. The girls are not in need of this public display. The girls deserve to be with family who genuinely cared for them before they were turned into mere PR tools, Victoria argued. I have submitted my custody application. My attorney believes I have a strong case, given that their maternal aunt has been a part of their lives since birth. Before James had a chance to reply, Emma emerged in the hallway, her complexion unusually ashen. Cameras are capturing moments outside our school. They continually inquired whether we are truly your daughters. James experienced a wave of fierce protectiveness. You attended school. Who has taken you? Emma, your assistant, responded. However, Aunt Victoria arrived to collect us just as the photographers made their entrance. She remarked that it was not secure. James glanced back at Victoria, who wore a victorious smile. While you were occupied with meetings all morning, I took it upon myself to shield the girls from the media frenzy you instigated. You brought this upon yourself, James said softly, making sure his voice remained steady in Emma's presence. It appears wise to consult with my legal team at this point. Wouldn't you agree? Victoria mocked. I'll take my leave now. The girls have my number if they need me, and they certainly will once you come to understand that 3 children don't quite align with your meticulously organized life. Once she departed, James discovered all 3 girls gathered in the media room, the television set to a news channel featuring a reporter positioned outside Sullivan Tower. Sources close to the family suggest that Sullivan had not been in touch with the children until last week, prompting inquiries into his abrupt interest in fatherhood. James switched it off without hesitation. I regret that you had to witness that. Could it be true? Olivia inquired, her keen intellect perpetually in pursuit of information. Did you not desire our presence before? James took a seat, bracing himself for the toughest dialogue he had ever encountered. He stated plainly, I wasn't aware of you. Had I been given the chance, I would have been present from the very start. Sophia whispered, Aunt Victoria says you shattered Mommy's heart. That's the reason she kept our story a secret from you. Her voice pierced him with its anguish. James spoke thoughtfully. Your mother and I shared a deep love, but I prioritized my career over our relationship. That was my error, not hers. Emma, always the guardian, positioned herself just ahead of her sisters. Will you repeat the same error with us? The inquiry lingered, both provocative and flawless in its straightforwardness. Outside, a throng of journalists assembled. The persistent buzzing of his phone filled the air. As the board reached out, the shadow of Victoria's custody threat grew ever closer. In that instant, as he gazed upon 3 faces reflecting his own, James Sullivan's priorities underwent a profound and permanent transformation. Indeed, he made a promise. You 3 take precedence now. All other matters can hold off. It was yet to be determined if any of them genuinely held faith in his words. Emma Sullivan perched on the windowsill of her new bedroom, observing the reporters bustling on the sidewalk 52 floors below. From this height, they resembled minuscule ants, yet their presence was undeniably overwhelming. The sisters busied themselves with their scant belongings. 3 stuffed animals, a few books, and the framed photograph of their mother, which Mr. Sullivan, their father, had insisted on displaying prominently on the dresser. Emma remained skeptical about this arrangement. Grown-ups often pledged their word, yet frequently abandoned those commitments when something deemed more significant appeared on the horizon. She had come to understand that lesson when her mother passed away, Grandma Margaret fell ill, and Aunt Victoria left them at the shelter. Her duty was to safeguard her sisters, not to indulge in fanciful stories of wealthy fathers. Do you believe he will allow us to paint the walls? Olivia inquired, her practicality evident as she navigated the room with deliberate strides. The room at Grandma's was painted a cheerful shade of yellow. My mother mentioned that the color yellow enhances your thinking abilities. Perhaps, Emma responded with a hint of uncertainty. Exercise caution in forming attachments. Do you recall the events that took place at the shelter? We intended to remain there until Grandma recovered, but then we arrived here. In the corner of the room, Sophia sat with her legs folded on the carpet, absorbed in her drawings within the sketchbook their father had gifted just the day before. Among the 3, Sophia resembled their mother the most, embodying an artistic spirit, a dreamy disposition, and profound sensitivity. Since then, her words had been few and far between. The journalists caught them off guard at school. What are you creating, Soph? Emma inquired, stepping away from her position to see how her most reserved sister was faring. Sophia angled the sketchbook to showcase an unexpectedly intricate drawing of their father, his face marked by deep lines of concern. She spoke gently, noting how he appears forlorn when he believes we aren't observing. Olivia approached, scrutinizing the drawing with her keen insight. Mom had a knack for capturing the emotions of others in her art, she observed. Do you recall how she had the uncanny ability to read our thoughts simply by glancing at our expressions? Emma pointed out that he doesn't know how to do that yet. He is completely unfamiliar with us. We're not familiar with him either, Sophia replied with surprising conviction. Yet, there must have been a time when Mom held affection for him. Observe. She turned to a new page in her sketchbook, where she had captured the essence of their parents from memory, youthful, joyful, and deeply in love. Emma reminded them that Aunt Victoria said he shattered Mom's heart. Olivia responded with a hint of doubt. Aunt Victoria has a lot to say. Do you recall the time she vowed to take us to Disney World if we achieved straight A's? That never took place. A sudden knock at the door broke the flow of their conversation. Their father lingered hesitantly in the doorway, appearing just as Sophia had depicted him, strong, yet tinged with an unmistakable fragility. I was considering that we could leave the apartment today, he remarked. A discreet entryway leads in from the garage. We might explore a toy store, perhaps pick up a few items to make this space truly reflect your personality. The sisters shared knowing glances, their triplet connection unmistakably at play. Emma, the chosen voice of the group by an unspoken consensus, nodded with careful consideration. That seems acceptable, she remarked, cautiously exploring the depths of this budding connection. However, we don't require extravagant gadgets. Perhaps a few books and some art supplies for Sophia. James Sullivan, their father, wore a smile, and for a fleeting instant, Emma glimpsed the qualities that may have drawn her mother to him. It was settled, books and art supplies, with a possible ice cream treat to follow. As they readied themselves to embark on their inaugural outing as a family, each sister held a unique set of reflections. Olivia carefully assessed the potential duration of this arrangement, devising backup strategies in her mind. Sophia keenly watched her father's every move, etching his essence into her memory for future illustration, while Emma stayed alert, resolute in her determination to keep her guard up for the time being. They were unaware that their presence had already transformed James Sullivan in profound ways, nor did they realize that the struggle for their future was only just commencing. Morning sunlight poured into James's penthouse, illuminating the space as he meticulously examined the custody filing papers crafted by his legal team. After a week of adjusting to his new life as a father to the triplets, another tempest was on the horizon. His phone vibrated, signaling an incoming call from his lead attorney. "Good morning, Richard," James replied softly, mindful of not disturbing the girl's sleep. "Unfortunately, it's not looking great," Richard responded with a hint of tension. "Victoria Williams has formally submitted her request for full custody. And James, it lacks beauty. Elaine Hoffman has been brought on board." James experienced a sudden sinking sensation in his stomach. Elaine Hoffman was infamous in family court, a formidable attorney known for her fierce approach in high-stakes custody battles against affluent fathers. Her strategies were renowned and frequently strikingly impactful. Richard went on to elaborate. "She has participated in yet another interview, this time with the Chronicle. It's harsh." James powered on his laptop, discovering that the article was already making waves online. Left behind by a wealthy mogul, the secrets surrounding the Sullivan triplets unfold. Victoria's emotional photograph was paired with quotes depicting James as a heartless executive who had disregarded Catherine's efforts to reach out and was now exploiting the children for publicity. Richard mentioned that she asserts Catherine contacted your office 17 times upon discovering her pregnancy. Is there any validity to that? James shut his eyes, recalling his assistant from that period, a woman he had tasked with protecting him from personal issues during the pivotal launch phase of his company. He conceded that it was indeed possible. "I was inaccessible to anyone not directly connected to the business." A faint noise from the entrance caught his attention, prompting him to glance upward. Emma lingered in her pajamas, her face a canvas of mystery. "Richard, I'll return your call shortly," James said swiftly, terminating the call. "Good morning, Emma. How long have you been lingering in that spot? Did you actually overlook Mom's calls?" she inquired straightforwardly, her youthful voice unwavering even in the face of such a heavy question. James paused for a moment, then motioned for her to join him at his side. I wasn't aware she was trying to reach me, he admitted honestly. But I did ensure that I was out of reach for anyone not related to work. I shouldn't have done that. Emma examined his face with a focus that brought back vivid memories of Catherine. Aunt Victoria believes that you'll lose interest in us once the novelty wears off, much like your extravagant cars and watches. The comparison hurt deeply, especially since there may have been a kernel of truth to it in the past. James consistently rushed from one accomplishment to another, never taking a moment to relish his success before pursuing the next ambition. Individuals cannot be owned, Emma, he stated gently. You and your sisters are not possessions. You are my daughters. That signifies a uniqueness unlike anything else I've experienced. Emma stated flatly, she's taking us to court. It was not a question. James nodded, taken aback by her keen perception. Indeed, she is making an effort. It seems we'll need to make a choice, won't we, between you and her. Emma's voice finally revealed a hint of doubt. It's not that simple, James began, but Emma interrupted him. It's just that straightforward for us, she asserted. Grown-ups often put kids in positions of choice, even when they act as if they're not doing so. Before James had a chance to reply, his phone buzzed once more, the board chairman insisting on an update regarding his return to full-time leadership. As he muted it, Emma shot him a glance that pierced right through to his essence. You see, something always holds greater significance, she remarked, gracefully rising from the couch and making her way toward the bedroom where her sisters rested, leaving James to confront the unsettling reality of her statement. Outside his window, across the street, a photographer wielding a telephoto lens seized the moment, adding fuel to Victoria's campaign to depict him as an unfit father. The conflict was set, and James Sullivan understood he was contending for something far more valuable than any business acquisition. The trust and hearts of his daughter were on the line, and Victoria had a considerable advantage. To James, the Sullivan Enterprises boardroom was more than just a meeting space. It was a sanctuary where he exuded authority and earned admiration. Today, as he positioned himself at the head of the gleaming mahogany table, confronting 8 serious board members, it resembled a courtroom more than a meeting. James, we understand your personal circumstances. Harold Winters, the board chairman, began thoughtfully, but the company is facing challenges. The Tokyo deal teeters on the brink of collapse. The Chicago acquisition demands your immediate focus for a minimum of 3 weeks, and any further delays are not an option. James surveyed the financial reports laid out in front of him. The announcement of the triplets has led to a 7% decline in stock prices. Investors felt a wave of unease regarding his abrupt change in focus. I appreciate your concerns, James responded calmly, but my daughters require stability at this moment, particularly with the custody battle looming. Eliza Chun, the latest addition to the board, leaned in with intent. James, it's not about questioning your role as a father. It's about recognizing that Sullivan Enterprises supports over 10,000 individuals who rely on the success of this company, and ultimately, your success. Harold declared with a straightforward tone, you have 3 options. Please resume full-time leadership without delay. Consider taking a formal leave of absence as we appoint an interim CEO, or avoid this partial engagement that fails to fulfill both your parental and executive duties. The ultimatum lingered in the atmosphere as James' phone vibrated with a message from Meredith. Expecting a home visit from CPS in 30 minutes. Please respond as soon as possible. I need to go, James said, rising suddenly. Urgent family matter. Harold's face grew stern. That's precisely the subject at hand, James. A decade ago, you would have remained in this room until we found a resolution, no matter what else was occurring. A decade ago, I was unaware of my children, James said, as he collected his belongings. Let's carry on this conversation tomorrow. Upon arriving home, James found a stern woman clad in a charcoal suit introducing herself to Meredith at the entrance. The woman extended her hand and said, Mr. Sullivan, I'm Rebecca Torres representing Child Protective Services. I am present to carry out an assessment related to the custody case initiated by Victoria Williams. The apartment, once pristine, now showcased the lively chaos of 3 children. backpacks strewn by the door, colorful artwork adorning the walls, and a half-finished puzzle occupying the coffee table. "Where have the girls gone?" James inquired softly to Meredith. "Continuing my studies." Victoria made sure to arrange for their pickup today due to your meetings. Meredith's expression revealed her unease regarding this situation. Ms. Torres recorded this exchange on her clipboard. "Mr. Sullivan, could you share how many hours each week you dedicate to directly overseeing the children?" The inquiry was a snare, and James was aware of it. Any truthful response would depict him as an absent father, while deceit would be readily exposed. He conceded that it was insufficient. "I'm rearranging my timetable to focus on them, but it's been quite difficult." "It seems rather concerning, doesn't it? The Chicago trip referenced in the filing, just 3 weeks after the children have lost their mother and grandmother?" Before James could reply, the elevator doors slid open to unveil Victoria with the triplets, each adorned in identical outfits that were entirely unfamiliar to him. "Oh," Victoria pretended to be taken aback. "We were unaware that you would be here, James. The girls and I enjoyed a delightful afternoon of shopping." Her gaze shifted with intent towards Ms. Torres. "I desired for them to have well-fitting clothes that truly suited them, rather than just anything at all. It may be available for online ordering." The underlying critique was evident, as was the communication directed at the CPS worker. Victoria made time for the children. James did not comply. Upon catching sight of Ms. Torres's clipboard, the triplets' faces transformed dramatically. They had encountered enough representatives bearing documents to understand the implications. A new upheaval was on the horizon. In that instant, confronted by his daughter's unease, the board's demand, and Victoria's self-satisfied assurance that he would prioritize his business, James Sullivan understood he had arrived at his pivotal moment. The Chicago trip hung over James like an ominous storm cloud, casting a shadow on his horizon. Tomorrow morning, his flight is set, a corporate jet poised to carry him off to rescue the acquisition that might secure Sullivan Enterprises' market supremacy for years ahead. His suitcase lingered half-packed in his bedroom, embodying the conflict within him. "Mr. Sullivan." Meredith stood in his doorway, her face etched with concern. "The school just reached out. There's been an incident involving Sophia." 20 minutes later, James hurried through the elementary school hallways, his heart racing. In the counselor's office, he discovered Sophia curled up in a chair, tears flowing quietly down her cheeks. A tattered paper project rested on the table before her. What transpired? James inquired of the counselor, a gentle woman who presented herself as Miss Patel. Miss Patel explained gently that today's assignment involved creating family trees. Sophia felt disheartened when a few classmates inquired about why her tree appeared different from theirs. James knelt beside his daughter, observing the family tree adorned with branches marked Mommy and Daddy, yet only Catherine's photo was affixed to it. His own branch stood out, notably devoid of activity. "I wasn't sure which image to choose," Sophia murmured. "I lack any of you." The straightforward declaration struck James with an unforeseen intensity. Naturally, there were no photographs to capture their moments together. He had been missing throughout their entire existence. "Then Tommy said you weren't truly our dad," Sophia continued, her voice quivering. "He mentioned that his mother believes you're merely putting on an act, as you require heirs for your wealth." James experienced a rush of fierce protectiveness. Yet before he could react, the office door swung open once more. Victoria entered, her face adorned with a carefully crafted look of worry. "I arrived the moment I got the news," she declared, throwing James a victorious look before turning her attention to Sophia. "Darling, I'm present now." "The school reached out to you as well?" James inquired, maintaining a calm tone despite his annoyance. "I'm their emergency contact," Victoria said effortlessly, "and I've held that role since the day they were born." The message was unmistakable. She had been present from the very start. He had not. "James, your flight to Chicago is quite early tomorrow, isn't it?" Victoria pressed on, her tone dripping with insincere sympathy. "There's no need to stress about limiting your time with Sophia. I can bring her back with me." Miss Patel shifted her gaze uneasily among the adults, acutely aware of the palpable tension in the air. "My flight's been cancelled," James announced, the words catching him off guard as they left his lips. "I'm not going to Chicago," Victoria's smile dimmed. "But your major acquisition can hold off," James concluded decisively. He glanced back at Sophia, her tears having subsided as she observed the unfolding scene. "What if we capture some moments together today? Just the four of us. That way you can complete your family tree the right way." At last, a flicker of light danced across Sophia's face. As they exited the school side by side, James's phone buzzed relentlessly, the board chairman likely already aware of his postponed journey. As he observed Sophia walking next to him, her delicate hand tentatively finding its way into his, James realized he had made the only choice he could have made. That evening, following an unplanned photo session that brought laughter from Emma, James gathered the girls for the discussion he had postponed for days. He started with a measured tone. "I have something significant to share with you. I decided against a business trip that would have kept me away for 3 weeks." Olivia inquired with her usual straightforwardness. Indeed, James acknowledged, for there are matters that hold greater significance than mere business transactions. "I am in the process of acquiring new knowledge. It's a little late, but I'm making progress." "Aunt Victoria insists that you'll never change," Emma remarked, her tone suggesting uncertainty rather than conviction. "Individuals have the capacity for transformation," Emma, James responded softly, "when they discover a reason compelling enough to embrace change." 3 pairs of blue eyes, his eyes, scrutinized him closely, measuring his words against the loss they had already endured. The trust he observed cautiously emerging held greater value than any business takeover. The family courtroom was more compact than James had anticipated, creating a sense of closeness that felt all the more daunting. He fidgeted with his tie, a wave of anxiety washing over him as his attorney, Richard, meticulously went over their strategy one last time. "Keep it factual," Richard suggested. Victoria's team aims to elicit a heartfelt reaction. Across the aisle, Victoria sat with her attorney, Elaine Hoffman, a figure known for her fierce and uncompromising approach. Victoria donned a classic navy dress that highlighted her ties to the traditional family values she professed to embody. As the triplets walked in alongside their court-appointed guardian, ad litem, James experienced a tightening in his chest. They appeared diminutive and serious in their coordinated dresses, their indistinguishable faces drawn tight with apprehension. Everyone stood as the bailiff declared the arrival of Judge Martinez in the courtroom. The proceedings commenced with Victoria's testimony, meticulously designed to emphasize her enduring role in the lives of the girls. She recounted holidays, birthdays, and the mundane moments James had overlooked, each instance a fresh wound in his conscience. "How frequently did Catherine bring up Mr. Sullivan in your conversations?" Elaine Hoffman inquired. She felt utterly crushed by his rejection. Victoria responded, her voice cracking just as intended. Upon discovering she was expecting triplets, she reached out to his office time and again, yet her calls went unanswered. She revealed that he had decided, prioritizing his work over her. James clenched the edge of the table, striving to maintain his composure as Victoria portrayed him as a ruthless executive who had forsaken Catherine, now seizing the children merely to safeguard his reputation. As James took the stand, Elaine unleashed a relentless cross-examination. "Mr. Sullivan, over the past month, how many hours have you dedicated to spending time with the children on your own, without the help of nannies or your executive assistant?" "I have been rearranging my timetable." "A number, please," Elaine interrupted. "Not sufficient," James conceded, "yet I'm implementing adjustments such as canceling business trips at the 11th hour? What makes the court believe in your dedication when your history shows a tendency to place work before personal connections?" Richard raised his objections, yet the harm had already been inflicted. James could feel the sweat forming on his forehead as Elaine persistently tore apart his case with precision. "Does your company necessitate regular international travel and extended hours? What measures can be taken to ensure the stability these children require following the trauma they've endured?" As Elaine concluded her remarks, Judge Martinez announced a short recess. In the corridor, James noticed the triplets perched on a bench alongside their guardian ad litem. He moved forward with care, mindful of the regulations that restricted interaction during the proceedings. "Will you be defeated?" Emma inquired directly when the guardian permitted him to have a brief conversation with them. "I'm not sure," James replied candidly. "But no matter what unfolds, I need you three to understand something significant." He lowered himself to their height, disregarding the costly fabric of his suit trousers against the courthouse floor. "Discovering you has been the most remarkable experience of my life. It's not solely due to our biological connection, but rather the profound impact of knowing you that has illuminated what truly holds significance in life." As the court session resumed, James brushed aside the meticulously crafted statement his legal team had put together. Instead, he addressed Judge Martinez directly, sharing his journey over the past month, reflecting on his mistakes, expressing his regrets, and affirming his commitment to change. He acknowledged that the past 7 years were unchangeable, yet he vowed that from the instant he discovered his daughters, they took precedence in his life. "I have distanced myself from the day-to-day activities of my business. I have called off the Chicago acquisition that was meant to be the pinnacle of my professional journey. Victoria asserts that I will consistently prioritize work over family, yet I have already demonstrated that this belief is unfounded." As he concluded his remarks, the courtroom doors swung open, revealing a delicate silhouette in a wheelchair, guided by a nurse. Margaret Williams, appearing strikingly frail yet resolute, had managed to leave her hospital bed to be present. "Your Honor," she spoke softly, "I possess testimony pertinent to this case." The judge's eyes grew wide with astonishment, yet he acquiesced, permitting this unforeseen turn of events. Victoria was taken aback, her usual poise shattering as her mother readied herself to address the room. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted to a hushed stillness as Margaret's wheelchair was carefully placed before the judge. Though she seemed delicate, her voice resonated with unexpected power as she spoke to the court. "Your Honor, I stand before you to share the honest account of my daughters and granddaughters." Margaret's delicate hands quivered gently as she repositioned the oxygen tube in her nostrils. "Victoria has created an artwork that fails to capture the truth of the world around us." Victoria squirmed in her chair, feeling the weight of her mother's words pressing down on her. Although Victoria asserts that she has been a constant presence in the girls' lives, the reality is that she only made appearances a couple of times each year, typically during holidays, bringing along lavish gifts but lacking genuine engagement. Margaret took a moment to steady herself, inhaling deeply. Catherine maintained a journal chronicling the experiences of the girls. She conveyed her plan to reach out to James once the girls reached the age of 7. Margaret shifted her gaze to meet Victoria's eyes. She had no intention of allowing Victoria to gain custody, Your Honor. She recognized that her sister's bitterness toward James was detrimental, a bitterness stemming from Victoria's unreciprocated feelings for him back in college. A collective gasp echoed in the courtroom, Victoria's cheeks turning a vivid crimson as the weight of this revelation lingered in the atmosphere. "That's a lie," Victoria protested, her composure beginning to unravel. "This focuses on what is most beneficial for the girls, rather than delving into the past." "Is it?" Margaret asked softly. "Or is it about punishing James for choosing Catherine over you all those years ago?" As the judge demanded silence, James remained in shock at this unexpected revelation. In an instant, the reasoning behind Victoria's vendetta became clear. It transcended Catherine. It delved into her own unacknowledged emotions. As the court session came to a close for the day, James stood at the crossroads of a decision that would define his future. An urgent meeting was convened by his legal team with the board of Sullivan Enterprises, who were insisting on a resolution to the ongoing leadership crisis. As they exited the courthouse, Richard clarified the board's stance. "It's essential that you either resume your full-time leadership role and make appropriate childcare arrangements for the girls, or they will have to activate the succession clause outlined in your contract." The succession clause, a provision James had championed years prior to guarantee the company's stability, would compel him to resign if he became incapacitated or otherwise unable to perform the responsibilities of CEO. He had never envisioned that it would be wielded against him for opting for fatherhood. Upon returning to his apartment, the triplets fell into an unusual silence, acutely aware of the gravity of the day's happenings. As James gently tucked them into bed that night, Sophia grasped his hand tightly. "Will you select us or your organization?" she inquired, her tone soft yet straightforward. The inquiry struck him deeply. The three girls gazed at him with anticipation, their matching blue eyes mirroring his own, seeking the truth. Some decisions may appear challenging, yet they become straightforward once you understand what truly holds significance. James responded thoughtfully. "Tomorrow, I plan to implement some changes that could catch people off guard." The following morning, James strolled into Sullivan Tower, dressed not in his typical power suit but in relaxed slacks and a cozy sweater. He ascended in the elevator straight to the boardroom, where the urgent meeting was already underway. "James, Harold Winters has officially begun. We have completed the required paperwork for both situations. You have two options. Either sign this agreement to commit to full-time leadership starting now, or choose this one, which temporarily delegates CEO powers to the COO." James surveyed the table, taking in the familiar faces of those who had been his companions in work for many years. He subsequently set a third document down on the table. "I've devised my own solution," he stated with composure, "to take effect right away. I will be transitioning from my role as CEO to serve solely as chairman of the board, taking on limited hours and responsibilities." The atmosphere crackled with disbelief, yet James pressed on, his mind sharpened with a fresh perspective. "My daughters require my presence more than this, and I find myself needing them more than this title." Across town, Victoria absorbed the news with a sense of incredulity. Her advantage, his fixation on his business, had just vanished, compelling her to rethink her approach in a custody dispute that now appeared far more ambiguous. The atmosphere in the courtroom crackled with anticipation as the last day of the custody hearing commenced. The announcement of James Sullivan's unexpected resignation as CEO rippled through the business community, leaving a significant impact on the ongoing events. Victoria sat at her table, an unmistakable air of unease surrounding her, while James seemed to embody a newfound ease, his attention fully captured by the trio of small figures accompanied by their guardian at Letham. Judge Martinez prepared to speak, his throat clearing in anticipation. "Before we proceed, I would appreciate hearing from Margaret Williams once more. Her testimony yesterday sparked considerable apprehension regarding the underlying motivations of this custody dispute." Margaret, appearing even more delicate than the previous day, was brought to the forefront of the courtroom. The nurse lingered close by, an oxygen tank at the ready. "Excuse me, Your Honor?" Margaret started, her voice delicate yet resolute. "Today I carried along Catherine's journal. In her last entry, 3 weeks prior to the accident, she articulated her hopes for the girls, should anything occur to her." Victoria felt a wave of unease wash over her as Margaret presented the leather-bound book to the judge. Catherine understood her role as the link connecting the girls to both sides of their family. Margaret continued. She wished for them to connect with their father, yet she worried that Victoria's bitterness might taint that bond. "Mother, I implore you." Victoria attempted to speak, but Judge Martinez quieted her with a piercing gaze. Catherine expressed that Victoria had consistently harbored jealousy towards her connection with James during their college years. Margaret articulated her thoughts, her gaze heavy with sorrow yet unwavering. Upon discovering the pregnancy, Victoria urged Catherine to keep it a secret from James, insisting that he would only let her down once more. However, Catherine shared with me that as the girls matured, her doubts about that choice intensified with each passing day. The judge perused the journal in silence, his demeanor somber. "Mrs. Williams, was Victoria aware of your daughter's plans to reach out to Mr. Sullivan?" "Indeed," Margaret replied. Catherine had confided in her mere weeks prior to the tragic accident. Victoria, filled with rage, declared that James would separate the girls from everyone. A fierce dispute erupted between them over the matter. A thick hush enveloped the courtroom as every gaze shifted to Victoria, who rose suddenly. "This is utterly absurd." Catherine was oblivious to his true nature. She insisted. She failed to grasp the true nature of the man he is. What sort of man is that? Ms. Williams? Judge Martinez inquired with a steady tone. Victoria gestured emphatically toward James, a man who shirks his duties, prioritizing his career over family, who has just stepped down from his role as CEO to dedicate himself to his daughters. The judge concluded on her behalf, arching an eyebrow. With that straightforward observation, Victoria's meticulously crafted story started to fall apart. Yet, the most crushing impact arrived shortly after from an unforeseen origin. Emma rose from her seat, her soft voice resonating clearly in the quiet courtroom. Aunt Victoria revealed that our father was aware of our existence and chose not to embrace us. She mentioned it yesterday when she treated us to ice cream. She mentioned that his interest in us seems to be driven by the benefits it brings to his company. Olivia gave a subtle nod, affirming her agreement. She mentioned that we ought to avoid calling him Dad, as he might send us away once he grows weary of the family act. The judge's demeanor shifted ominously as he faced Victoria. Ms. Williams, have you been intentionally trying to distance these children from their father? Before Victoria could gather her thoughts, Sophia rose from her seat and approached James, intertwining her fingers with his in a gesture that conveyed so much more than words ever could. He's our father, she stated plainly, and he doesn't claim to be flawless. He puts in a tremendous amount of effort. In that instant, observing his daughter's courageous stance, James sensed a profound change take root within him. The legal struggle, his business, his past ambitions, all faded into insignificance next to the desire for that straightforward affirmation of trust from his kids. As Judge Martinez announced a brief recess to deliberate on his ruling, James knelt beside Sophia, with Emma and Olivia swiftly joining them in a close-knit circle that shut out everything else around them. No matter what unfolds, he assured them, we are bound as family, and that bond holds the utmost significance. 3 months after the custody hearing had wrapped up, James found himself gazing out the window of his penthouse, observing the city lights twinkle beneath him. The apartment had undergone a remarkable transformation. Where sleek minimalism once held sway, vibrant colors and life now burst forth in every corner. Emma's soccer trophies proudly occupied one shelf. Olivia's impressive collection of science books filled a bookcase to the brim, and Sophia's vibrant artwork graced every wall. Judge Martinez awarded James full custody, allowing for regular visits with Margaret, who had sufficiently stabilized in health to transition into an assisted living facility close to their residence. Victoria found herself with restricted supervised visitation rights, dependent on her completion of family therapy sessions, a condition she was begrudgingly meeting. Father. The mere sound of that word ignited a rush of excitement within him every time it echoed in his ears. Sophia emerged beside him, clutching her sketchbook. I created something for your workspace. James scrutinized the intricate drawing of the 4 of them, impressively talented for a 6-year-old. The Sullivan Tower loomed in the background, yet the attention was unmistakably on the family, overshadowing the structure that had once held such significance in his life. It's perfect, he murmured, enveloping her in a tender embrace. I'll place it right beside my desk. The shift was far from simple. Mastering the art of hair braiding, tackling school assignments, and addressing the emotional complexities of 3 unique individuals had propelled James well outside his usual boundaries. Yet, every clumsy effort and every minor achievement had forged a more robust foundation of trust. More than any corporate empire, the car awaits, named Meredith, who has unexpectedly flourished in her broadened role that now harmonizes both business and family logistics. The board meeting will commence in 30 minutes. As the chairman of the board, rather than the CEO, James participated in monthly meetings instead of managing daily operations, allowing him plenty of time to spend with the girls. Today, though, held a unique significance. The triplets were set to arrive at Sullivan Tower for their inaugural visit. Emma stepped out of her room clad in a tiny blazer that mirrored his own, a thoughtful decision that moved him profoundly. Olivia trailed behind, a tablet held tightly against her chest, her excitement palpable as she anticipated the glimpse into the company's operations room, adorned with its impressive wall of data screens. Do you believe others will gaze at us? Emma inquired as they descended in the elevator to the garage. Perhaps, James replied candidly, but only because they've heard about the incredible talents of the three of you. The secluded family entranced to Sullivan Tower avoided the bustling main lobby, where journalists sometimes hung around, eager for snapshots of the Sullivan triplets who had altered the course of Ness mogul. In his office prior to the meeting, James took a moment to reflect on a photograph that was prominently showcased on his desk. Catherine, beaming at her college graduation, radiating vitality and potential. Next to it now was Sophia's family. Character study. Text. He told the girls as they gathered around him. Your mother would be so proud of you three. Moreover, I believe... He paused, a wave of feeling constricting his throat. I believe she would feel a sense of pride in me as well at last. As they strolled toward the boardroom, Emma intertwined her fingers with his. Olivia moved swiftly alongside them, bombarding him with inquiries about stock prices. Sophia lagged a bit, her pencil dancing across the page as she captured the stunning panorama from the executive floor. James Sullivan had previously characterized success through acquisitions, market share, and profit margins. Success was now defined by bedtime tales, assistance with schoolwork, and the sound of three voices affectionately referring to him as Dad. The company continued to flourish under its new CEO, yet James discovered something far more precious than mere financial success. He discovered his legacy in the three extraordinary girls who had unexpectedly bestowed upon his life its genuine meaning. The empire he had devoted years to constructing would persist, yet it was the family he was nurturing in the present that would ultimately stand the test of time.